Hey, first off, folks, let me just say I have got several links down below in the description. The little triangle in the corner, at the bottom of the video, or under the video, should I say. Go check out these videos. They say a little bit too much. We've got DC Draino, who is one of the people I listen to a lot over on Twitter, and Jim Hoff from the Gateway Pundit, and Patty McMurray from the Gateway Pundit. They're all three come on Steve Bannon's War Room to discuss this bombshell breaking information about what's going on in Michigan involving this police report that has finally been released. 3-year-old case about voter irregularities and a lot of merchandise that was found in this. I'm guessing it was a stash house, is the way I understand it. There was guns with silencers, burner phones, fake voter registration forms. There's all kinds of evidence, subjective evidence at this point, other than it being on a police report. It has never been contested as a fraudulent case, but it is definitely something that I would say, me personally would say, it is definitely contestable. And it all boils down to this guy named Gary Bell from GBI Strategies, and I've reported on him or GBI Strategies twice in the past. You know, we've heard about this guy, Mark Elias, who's one of the DNC, basically super lawyers. He is one of the ones that runs around the entire country defending the voting rights and all that crap that they try to push on us. Mark Elias is one of the evil, I would say evil, Democrats that does his best to finagle the rules and things to fit their purpose. I'll leave it at that. But a couple of times, GBI Strategies and Mark Elias have crossed paths in articles that I've read in the past, and I just thought I'd bring that up to y'all. Both of these guys are obviously horrible individuals when it comes to what their purpose is. Now, ballot harvesting is not illegal in some states, so I can't speak to the validity of the criminality of these allegations. But I will go ahead and read you the story. Thank God for police reports and FOIA requests, because we need to know about people like this. This is how the 2020 situation and future situations tend to go awry, is when you don't see all the working parts of a obviously a mechanism to harvest and recruit and obviously pay. Now I heard they were using like temporary services, hiring people by the hour. That was one of the allegations here. I heard they were paying people with phone cards. I heard that one lady, and we'll get into that, had over 10,000 of those papers that got dropped at one time. And I'll go ahead and start reading into the article. Otherwise, I'll just tell you all the details in advance. Let's go ahead and read a little bit of it. And like I said, I've got 2 or 3 links in the description below to 2 more articles that have videos of Steve Bannon and DC Draino and a couple of people from the Gateway Pundit just discussing the whole breakdown of this whole situation.
Happened is there's this organization called GBI Strategies, right? And they hire these foot soldiers. We saw this in 2000 Mules. They were depositing 8 to 10,000 voter registrations in a single dump. One person would walk into a city clerk's office and dump 8 to 10,000 ballot registrations. And where they found this person was in Muskegon, Michigan, which I was like, oh, maybe that's a major metropolis. Maybe it's close to Detroit. Hundreds of miles away. This has a population of 38,000 people, and a Democrat operative dropped off 8 to 10,000 ballots, ballot registration. They went through them. They saw a lot of them had the same handwriting, the same signatures, fake addresses, fake phone numbers. And then when they investigated this in October of 2020, they staked out the warehouse where they were operating out of, and when they did an investigation, they found AR-15s with silencers. They found prepaid cash cards. They found burner phones. They found paperwork for rental cars. And then they checked the trash, and the trash had all the employment agreements of their operatives. They were cleaning it up. And so Jim Hoft has exposed this. The Attorney General was involved with the investigation. She has not said a single thing about it. She's a Democrat, Dana Nessel. And here's the worst part: the FBI was brought in, and then the whole thing got basically shut down. We haven't heard about this for 3 years until the Gateway Pundit exposed it.
Alright folks, that's as far as I can go in the video, but it's 11 minutes long. I'm going to leave you a link in the description below to all 3 of these articles. And it's a crazy story. All I can say is police reports are corroborated allegations. But as far as the criminality of the ballot harvesting, I guess it depends on what state you're in. I guess it depends on how the Secretary of State feels. I guess it depends on who's lining whose pockets. But as far as me being able to use the F word, they haven't proved one time, and I know you don't want to hear this, but they haven't proved one time in court that this was going on a mass scale, because you remember they like to use this phrase when it got down to it was almost provable, not enough widespread voter fraud to change the results of the election. You remember how it started off with no issues to not enough issues to count, not enough issues to change the results. They basically kept dragging the narrative as far as they could without actually spilling the beans. And so we got to people like George Stephanopoulos and all these CNN reporters chirping that very same term. Not enough voter fraud. Not enough. Not that there's an actual number that you have to get to prove it, but not enough to change the results. So they're not saying it didn't happen. They're saying that you can't prove it happened on a big enough scale to complain about it, especially if your name's Donald Trump. On 2020 election issues in Michigan. The investigation had been buried by politicians, government investigators, and the press. We know that's a fact, especially the press part. It says on October 8, 2020, only 1 month before the 2020 general election, Muskegon, Michigan City Clerk Ann Misch noticed a black female whose name was later redacted from the police report dropping off between 8,000 and 10,000 completed voter registration applications at the city clerk's office. Now, this is not speculation. These are allegations, but it's not speculation because all this information is in the police report, which is available. As a matter of fact, a couple of these articles have some of the photographs of the police report. It says this clerk, Mashik, I guess that's how you say her name, immediately noticed that the stacks of registrations included the same handwriting, non-existent addresses, and incorrect phone numbers. She had an opinion about it. The Muskegon Police Department was contacted and asked to investigate on 10/21/20. First Lieutenant Mike Anderson was contacted by Tom Fabius, Chief Investigator of Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel's office, according to the Michigan State Police, and Fabius asked for Michigan State Police assistance with a joint investigation of alleged voter issues being conducted by Muskegon Police Department and the Attorney General. An investigation task force was formed, and an investigation was initiated. They go to find the evidence, and then it all goes away. But we got some details in between. It says when the police investigated GBI Strategies office near Muskegon, they found semi-automatic guns with silencers and suppressors. I wonder what they needed them for. Burner phones, a bag of prepaid cash cards, incomplete registrations, in an office space that was styled as an eyeglasses store that had gone defunct. So they were doing it in a closed down business. There were never any arrests, and the investigation was turned over to the FBI, where it went to die. Don't ever give the investigation over to the FBI, because they're not going to do anything about it unless it's got Trump's name on it. All right, folks, what we got here is we've got Jim Hoff from the Gateway Pundit. I will play you a piece of the video. I have to play you a short little clip because there's a lot of words that they use that are just not as friendly as they need to be for this particular platform we're on. But check this out.
Jim Hoff, I've only got a minute. We're going to hold you through the break. Just give me the headlines of what the new explosive material you've now found, sir.
Thanks to DC Draino, that was amazing. Yes, so we digged a little deeper into GBI strategies. We found the founder of this group, the director of this group, and as DC Draino said, they have operations in 20 different states. He has this is a newsbreaker. He has 70 different organizations. He says he is running. This Gary Bell is his name. I think we struck pay dirt, Steve. I think we found the deep state of the campaign operations on the Democrat Party. And so we have a lot on his funding that's coming up. And we also have more on Gary Bell. And I'm sure that the Democrats will not like that we're going to be talking about this player.
Okay. Walk me through this again, because this is huge. And I want to take our time and go through this. So walk me through it again, Jim Hoff.
All right, Steve, and thanks to DC Draino again. That was a great intro. What we found yesterday, and we brought this to the War Room and the War Room audience, and for the record, Steve, that story went completely viral yesterday. And it struck a vein because the fake fact checkers were out, trying to disqualify our reporting, pointing out to anything they could find. But we stand by our reporting. It's very strange when your audience thinks of this, and an average American, that you would have an office like this where they're writing out registrations. Several of the registrations we know was they were in the same handwriting. That was something that was a red flag immediately at this city clerk's office in Muskegon, Michigan. Also in this office, they have the semi-automatic weapons plus silencers. I mean, doesn't every campaign office need to have those with burner phones, with different T-shirts, and with these cash cards? And Steve, they are so organized with this. In the fact that they're not just paying cash cards, but they went and got different cash cards to make sure that it's harder to trace. Isn't that interesting? So they've been, that says to me this is something that's they've thought about, it's organized, it's coordinated. And then today what we found was that this director of GBI strategies, and this was the two offices they were talking about in the Muskegon area that they raided one of the offices. This director admits in this bio page of this obscure website, by the way, this man's name is Gary Bell. He literally has nothing online. It's hard to find anything about this person. We scoured, the internet. We had one of our AI experts, who you may know, looking through. It's hard to find anything. What we did find was that he was bragging on this one website in his bio about how he was working with 70 different organizations. This is Gary Bell. He's the one who's the director of GBI strategies. He also says that he has offices not just in Michigan, but in 20 different states, and that he's working with 7 other states as an advisor. So
that's ridiculous, folks. It makes me sad. It makes me realize what we're up against, and that's a horrible thing to say. But for a fact, this Black Pack funded this. Mark Zuckerberg facilitated with the drop boxes through his organizations. Act Blue helped facilitate this, just my opinion, which is another left-wing organization. And the DNC, of course, there's a receipt showing how much money the DNC put in on it. And even the Joe Biden campaign put in $450,000 in on this as well. They were all shelling out money to make this possible. Somebody was paying for those burner phones and those cards and the swap out T-shirts and the renting the buildings. And think about that happening in the one location that they caught. In reality, I'm sure it was going on such a massive level, especially in big cities. They caught this in a city that had less than 50,000 people, and when they figured out that they had this 10,000 accumulated amount come from one person, that was enough of a red flag to go, okay, wait a minute, why would one person have 8,000 of these things? The story actually broke about 3 years ago, and as fast as it showed up, it went away. And just like it says in the Bible, everything in darkness will come to light. And I'm glad to see it. I hope this helps Trump in his case. Hopefully it helps these 16 electors in the state that are attempting to be indicted and prosecuted for witnessing these very things. Now, I'm going to play you just a little bit of Miss Patty McMurray, and then we'll go over to DC Draino, and I'll end the video. But go watch the full videos, read the articles, folks. If you care about what's going on with our election system, how we're going to be able to contest it, beat it, and beat them at their own game, you got to learn how they're playing the game. And I'm not talking about doing illegal things to make it happen, but they may have to get to the point they need to start the RNC needs to start hiring people like the DNC does. That's part of the problem, folks. The RNC is not as motivated as the DNC to win, and that is a huge disconnect from the voters to actually get what they need out of the final candidate poll. Let's go ahead and play a little bit of this here.
Patty McMurray. Your thoughts, observations on this, ma'am? You've been a bulldog in this thing.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Steve. It's interesting you bring up the signature verification because, as everybody knows, a judge found in Michigan that Benson violated the law when she told the city clerks in Michigan to ignore the signature matching in 2020 on the absentee ballots. So that's an important point. The other important point is that the analyst in this report that Jim and I spoke with you about yesterday, the state police report, which was FOIA'd by a citizen, in the report, it talks about, her analyst talks about somebody that he interviewed, one of the applicants for a registration to vote, and she told him that she was approached by an acquaintance and asked to fill out the form. And she explained that the signature on the bottom of the form that the police officer and the Secretary of State analyst that was, I think, interviewing her was not her signature. So it's interesting that in the report, the Secretary of State analyst talks about how the signatures did not match, and that's how they were able to determine the fraud, or one of the ways they were able to determine the fraud, in addition to having incorrect last four numbers of the Social Security numbers, fake addresses, and so on and so forth, fake names. But it's interesting that that's how the Secretary of State analyst was able to determine that there was fraud involved here.
Now, she is calling it the F word, fraud. Now, it may very well be fraud, but until you prove it in a court of law, before a judge or a jury, and they prove it as fraud, you can't call it fraud. And that is probably one of the things that a lot of people didn't know about the legality of talking about things like this on social media platforms. You can't assume too much, and maybe she knows more than I do, but I would have to say at this point, these are the very incriminating allegations of fraud. Now, with the police report, I don't know what the technicality is. Maybe you can say the F word at this point because of the police report, but fraud is a not so friendly term, I would have to say, for you too. So I don't use it too much, but I would say maladministration a lot of times. But in the case where you're actually manipulating and doing things that are against harvesting rules of the state, well, then you get into other legal terms. But I'll leave it at that. Watch the full interview, folks. There's, like I said, I got one more little clip for you I wanted to play. But the money trail on this is crazy. Leads right to the Biden campaign, the DNC. This Black Pack collected the money, and this GBI was obviously getting paid, and not just from them. This is just one particular state. This is one particular city and one particular state where this was obviously going on. They caught one of them. Now this guy ought to be under investigation. I would say Trump comes back, I would put that guy under Mr. Mark Elias and Mr. GBI. They'd definitely be having to answer some questions for me. I guarantee you that. Like, subscribe, and share to Voted Patriots. I have got lots of links in the description down below. I hope you stuck around to the end, and I hope this doesn't get me a strike, but I've tried to do my best to keep it as objective as possible. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below. I don't know what this will do to help anybody's situation, but exposure is always a good thing. I have to say that as a rule. Over and out, folks.